All right, guys. So here we have another video, and as you can tell, this is a 3D print of what we expect the Fold 8 wide and the Apple Fold to be exactly like this, which is 3.29 inches and about 5.5, maybe 5.6. This is the Samsung Galaxy 7 Fold, and look how narrow it is. You can just tell how narrow it is, and we're going to show you some clips. And then this is the original Google Pixel in 2023, the Google Pixel Fold. And I like this design, except of course I wished, the height now looks, if it could be a little, because this is up a little bit compared to where this is at, and you can kind of tell it's needs to be down. If it was this size, I think that would even be better, but they want to go with this. So eventually we'll play this and see once it's opened up. Oh yeah, here's another example of how narrow that screen was. And these are beautiful examples because you can tell how wide this is versus how narrow this is. And of course, I don't know why they would want to do it where they lose this much height, because I would think even where this is at, as you can tell where the pinhole is at, even if it was down here, I don't know why they would drop it down so much. Now, you have to remember this is about 6.24 to 6.28. So this is pretty high up. Um, and so, we're talking about 6.2 inches. And so it is shorter. It looks to be at least an inch, probably about an inch shorter, if not a little bit more. But the width, you're getting about at least a half an inch wider. I don't know if you can tell that, but it is a lot wider. And so when I talk about the dimensions, these are exactly the dimensions I was talking about. How, yes, when you're looking at content, you're going to be missing out this much space. I believe that it should have been where the pinhole's at, anywhere between where my finger's at to up to the top. And then on the width, we're looking at easily at least a half an inch. And if this was pushed to the side, you'd be able to tell. So it's got that wide view. And you're looking at different things. But then, like I said before, if you needed to have more of a scrolling, doom scrolling type style format, just rotate it. So he's gonna go over here and just rotate the phone. Once you rotate the phone, you can kind of tell how what's wrong with this versus what this is. Well, the content, if you ever go onto any social media app, let's just say TikTok, for example, this will be black bars on both sides, right? So you'll have the content in the middle, but it's all barred up, just black bars, just like you would see up here and down here, just for the wide view aspect, right? So when they do this design, that actual content should all fit within this space. And what they want to do with this side, and that it's up to them. But you can, they're going to have their own features. Apple's going to have their own. They have their own OS systems, so they're going to make their own operating systems to operate with this, especially more of a tablet feel, maybe an iPad, and then of course you're going to have a lot of benefits with that, right? So you can probably do a dual or like a switch. So for example, it would probably be a one mode where you can put it into the full screen mode and just have that content on this and really utilize this whole entire screen, because it'd be made perfect for it, because knowing that it could all fit without being distorted, or just with the aspect ratio, the ones that it's put in. And I bet there's going to be something where it's using all of the screen, and then you're going to be able to press another button and then minimize it and have other features on it, and I'm sure that's going to happen. And then of course on split screen, I don't know if you can tell, but obviously if you look on split screen, when you have two apps, it just reminds me of the I'm the first one that even made a video about it. But if you heard of the Microsoft Surface Duo, and I had one, I have the video, 2021, and then even a few months later, Shane came out with it, but I had done it first. And anyway, it uses all this, and a lot of people may not have heard about it, but if you're selling phones or you're in anything that has to do with electronics, you or even software, if you're doing software engineering, um, like I have, you will really, really be able to tell the difference. And so with this here, not only it's the 4:3 aspect ratio, but you're going to be able to use this, and not just for a bigger display on both apps running, but then also there's going to be another feature. I know there has to be another feature when it's coming to Apple Fold. They're going to have to do something because they want to separate the iPad versus the mobile, for cellular devices, right? For cell phones, they want to make it something different, and I'm bet you there's going to be more features that's just designed and customized for this foldable. And speak of the devil, there's the Microsoft Surface Duo. See that white, without the cover display because it didn't have any. When you open this, and that's the 2021. I was one of the first people to ever get one. That was actually a most streamed video of mine. That was a wild, it was a beautiful display. I remember watching Netflix on it. Just the aspect ratio, and I don't know why people didn't go with this. If they just added a cover screen, even if they added the cover screen here, and that would have been it. I mean, you can actually open this and rotate it, and actually fold this back all the way around. Except it would hit the camera on the back. But yeah, like this phone, and this was back in 2021. So this phone was could have had it something happen. Microsoft Surface Duo, they could have just kept going with this type of shape, because now looking at this, it's the same thing. You're repeating history, but yeah, they could have done this easily. We'll see what happens here. Right. Hopefully they'll open this up so you can kind of see it. We'll see what happens. There we go. There we go. See what I mean? And yes, it did have bezels in there, but yeah, it's mostly just gonna. Well, obviously it's 2026. It's gonna be very thin bezels on this one. Hopefully it turns on. You'll see what I'm talking about right here. Well, obviously they're not going to, but you can kind of measure it because a lot of this was bezel, just the black bar around it. This is going to be more refined, and it's just going to be mostly screen. And Samsung, the Fold 7 is just too thin. It's too narrow. But with this, yes, obviously. And so it's very hard to be able to tell how narrow this screen is. And this is what everybody wanted, except we wanted, even this would be all right if it was, obviously this was in 2023. It had more bezels on it. The black bars around was thicker. So yeah, obviously, even if they made this wider, and or at least just take away the bezels and make it where it's mostly screen, this would have been this is what we wanted, and this is what Samsung was gonna do. But then back in 20, either 24 or 25, they scrapped that idea, and then now that Apple's gonna do theirs, they remember this is 7 years, and this year's gonna be their eighth year in about this summer. So in about what, 5 months. And then what happened was, why it's going to be such a controversy is because, or controversial, is because everybody that has had the Fold since 2018, and gone on from either skipped a generation or switched to other phones and gone on to this is so narrow that compared to like the bigger screens, that they've always wanted a wider phone, and they've been asking this at least for 5 years. And even from the beginning, most people have been asking for just a wider screen, and they finally almost had it. And even for some reason, they don't want to give you that eighth of an inch wider of a screen. And so when these dimensions came out, that the Apple Fold was going to be a 3.29, which would have been almost half an inch wider, half an inch wider. That's what people are going to go after now. Now, for I don't know why it's going to be so short, but if it's mostly screen, it's still going to be as you know about it's just going to be made up by how long it is. The You'll have a half an inch wider on once you open this up. It'll be half an inch, and then about a little more than a quarter inch or 0.29 of an inch um, wider, just in this way. And then once it's open, so I think that most people will go with that. And then obviously the Samsung's going to make their fold wide, fold 8 wide, which will go into direct competition with the Apple Folds, and that's going to be something to see there too. So